Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and I source cars for people on a professional basis. Although most of the cars I source are between £1,000 and £5,000, very often I've been asked to show something a little bit cheaper on the channel, and so I came up with No Budget Reviews, the series where we look at cars that you can buy in good condition with an MOT for under £1,000 and you can enjoy driving. We don't film this in an expensive manner, we don't use separate microphones, we don't use fluid head tripods, we don't even use a DSLR, but we do have a lot of fun. Well viewers, here we are again. Still got absolutely no budget whatsoever for filming anything, but we do have an unexpected car. I did not expect to be filming this today, but my mother's Mercedes has gone in for an MOT and service, and I asked for a courtesy car, and this is what the garage very kindly gave me. It's a 2009 Hyundai i10 1.2 Comfort, which was the darling of the old scrappage scheme in about 2009 and 2010. They sold thousands and thousands and thousands of these, and I've always been a little bit intrigued by this first generation i10 to see if it's actually any good. The first signs of this are reasonably positive. The car's got remote control central locking, it's got fog lights and alloy wheels in this particular trim, which was the mid-spec trim when the car came out. There was a facelift in 2010, but this is the pre-facelift one. There's not an awful lot to these cars, to be honest. The shape is what I call practical. It's functional rather than anything exciting. The boot is an interesting thing. I thought it was you had to use that lock to actually open up, but actually it's got a little handle like that. It has got a little handle, and if you sort of move this mostly redundant parcel shelf out of the way, lift this up, then somehow with one hand, which is going to be difficult, lift this up, there we go. You've actually got a space saver spare wheel in there, which is excellent. This is also a much bigger boot than something like, I don't know, a Peugeot 107 or a Citroen C1 or a Toyota Aygo, which were the sort of benchmark cars when the i10 was released in 2008. Little handle as well here to shut the boot. No parking sensors or reversing cameras or anything like that, but you don't really need them in a car like this, and you can buy these for under £1,000. This one's probably worth a little bit more because the mileage is relatively low, and this is a decent spec with a 1.2 engine. But yes, you know, I find it difficult to sort of complain for a car like this for under £1,000. Every single model of these also came with air conditioning. So if we get into back, this is my driving position. I'm 5'11". It's not quite as spacious as some of the magazines would said at the time. There's not as much knee room, but the car's so small that actually it's really not that bad. And we don't get an armrest or anything like that in here. You can fit 3 people in here if you really want. And if, you know, I'm going to sit behind my own position, I have to sit quite upright. But I do fit in here. It'll be all right for a short journey or something like that. Obviously, you don't get high quality plastics in a car like this. The base model of one of these cost £6,500 when it was new. And actually, they came with rear electric windows. Not all i10s came with rear electric windows. Some of the later ones didn't. The sort of stripped out model called the Blue didn't come with them, for example. But this one does. And I mean, the plastics are not the best really, but you know, they're all right. Considering this was almost the cheapest car in Britain when it came out, you can't really complain that much about it. The dashboard's nice and simple to understand. You can see it is a car that has been given to me by a garage with that massive yellow plaque on the steering wheel, which I will be filling up the fuel later on, of course, viewers. I wouldn't be naughty like that to not put the fuel back in. There's a big sort of storage compartment down here with a cup holder type thing. I mean, the quality of the fabric's not the most luxurious, but then you don't really expect that for the kind of money that this car was when it was new. No rear passenger light or anything, but it's not bad. You even get a 3-point seat belt for the centre occupant. I suppose we should sit in the front as well. One thing I find interesting about Hyundais of this era is that there's a little sticker just here which confirms the specification of the car. It's Comfort 1.2 petrol with 78 PS, which is about 77 horsepower. Got these very user-friendly fog light switches here, which are interesting. I don't know what that blanking plate is. I think it's because you could get ESP as an option on these cars, and that wasn't ticked by the first owner of this particular one. The instrument cluster is very simple. I used the steering wheel adjuster to be able to see those when I first got in the car. By putting the seat in the position where I normally drive, I couldn't see the instruments, but there is a high adjustable steering column. The lever's just there. It doesn't adjust very far, but it was enough. No automatic lights and wipers or anything like that, but just really simple controls. There is an aux input for the stereo. Later, i10s after the facelift in 2010 came with a USB import port. I think that was sort of in here somewhere. 12-volt socket, which actually is cunningly disguised as a cigarette lighter because we're still in that age, and then an ashtray, which is separate. You can take that out, and we've got a couple of cup holders there as well. The glove box does look big enough for secret mission documents. We will just check to see if the secret mission documents go in. Oh, come on, come on. No! Oh, dear. Why does this keep happening to me? I really need my secret mission document to get across the border, otherwise I shall have certain things happen to me that shall be undesirable. Let's just put them back there. There we go. Well, we can have a look at these switches though. I'm just opening the door a little bit for some ventilation. It's a bit muggy today. The switches actually are pretty good quality. They look very similar to other Kia and Hyundai models of this era. And the door bids aren't too bad, a little bit thin. The doors are not very thick at all. You do get side airbags. Actually, I can show you that there are side airbags in the car because it says there. No curtain airbags. And one weird thing about this particular car is the seatbelt height adjuster on the driver's side. I'll just show you this to be the film. Passenger side one from where I'm sitting, that squeaks a lot when I'm driving. I don't know really why that is. Also, this steering wheel. I think on the style models, possibly on the active ones, which were the replacement for the Comfort when the facelift came, got a better steering wheel. This one, which is available in the Classic and Comfort trims, is really not very nice. Look at this. Surprisingly though, you get a footrest down there. And you know, I've been to India where this car was made, and I think it would suit their conditions really quite well. It's probably better than like a Maruti Alto or whatever it is that is very popular over there. Right, I think it's time for us to have a look under the bonnet. So this is a 1.2 litre Kappa engine, developing 77 horsepower because this is a pre-facelift i10. This engine was available almost at launch all the way through to the end of first generation production for our market in about 2013, and the Kappa 2 version, which came in 2010, develops 85 horsepower. That is an engine that we have covered at length on this channel already. It was available in the Kia Rio, which came in 2011, and also the current generation Kia Rio, the bottom of the range car, still uses one of these for Kappa 2s. And then, of course, the Hyundai i20 that was launched, I think, about a year after this particular car. So, yes, it's a very well-proven engine. I have heard some reports of timing chains being a bit funny on them. Kia call this a 1.25, Hyundai call it a 1.2. It's the same engine. It has a cubic capacity of about 1248 cc, so make of that what you will. The other engines available were a 1 litre after the facelift that is part of the same family to Kappa 2, but a 3-cylinder. This is a 4-cylinder, and then there is also a very early type of engine the Hyundai and Kia had, called the Epsilon engine, but developed 1.1 litres and was, I think only available for a short time in the pre-facelift cars. Right, time to go for a drive. Right viewers, off we go around the very familiar roads of Eastleigh, because that's where we live. So this car is actually very similar to the first generation Kia Picanto as well, same sort of chassis, and I think the 1 litre and 1.1 engines are similar to what you would find in one of those. Certainly it's a very nippy feeling car with this 1.2 77 horsepower engine, and after the 2010 facelift this engine got upgraded with the Kappa 2 specification to 85 horsepower, which to me seems like, you know, far more than you need in a car like this, so it's going to spend most of its time just going around cities. Do apologise for the mount sort of bouncing around everywhere, that's just the way it goes on no budget reviews. And same thing with the lack of microphone. We don't use microphones on this series, because if you haven't got a budget you wouldn't buy one. Steering feels direct enough. I don't like the steering wheel, as I've already said, but I think if you've got a star model you might want a nice leather trim one. Gear shift is in the dashboard like an EP3 Honda Civic Type R. Wow, compare an i20 with an EP3 Honda Civic Type R. There's not an awful lot of refinement in here, but then for a little car of this age there really wasn't a lot of refinement in the class at all. People say that, you know, an MG3 is a bit unrefined, and funnily enough, with the facelifted model, the MG3 did actually compete directly with the Hyundai i10 on price, although they didn't have the 5-year warranty that was available on many first generation i10s. It's easy enough to drive. I don't like this cable operated clutch pedal. It reminds me a little bit too much of the one in the Proton Savvy that we drove last year, and yeah, that was one of the worst things about a Proton Savvy. The handling though of this car is certainly not as good as a Proton Savvy. The steering is not as good. Ride is a strange mixture of suddenly sharp and sort of comfortable. I don't really know how to describe it. It's difficult to sort of put my finger on that. Of course, the 1 litre was only available post facelift. That has 68 horsepower. I think you can actually still get that engine in a contemporary i10, or at least you could in the last model which has been replaced. This 1.2 was changed from 77 horsepower to 85 with the 2010 facelift, as I've already mentioned, and then yes, the old 1.1 that was the Epsilon family of engines and wasn't actually available for very long, that was 66 horsepower. Trim levels available on one of these. At the launch it was classic, comfort and style. Oh look, there's another one just gone past. Classic, comfort and style. The comfort trim was changed for the facelift, what was called the active model, and then there was the blue model. That wasn't a forbidden fuel car, that was just a very economical 1 litre engine. And then there were ES and edition cars as well. There were some diesels available in other markets, but as usual we don't talk about diesels on this channel. So the natural habitat of this car would be in town, and that's where we are, driving around the streets of Eastleigh. Apart from this clutch, which I think you'd probably get used to, because you know you get used to most things, don't you, when driving cars. The controls are quite light. The brakes are surprisingly good, probably because it's got rear disc brakes in it. There's not an awful lot of sound editing in here, but you really can't complain about that for the price that this car cost when it was new. really can't complain about that. I'm far more concerned I've got, you know, an aux input for the stereo and air conditioning and 4 electric windows and things like that. I mean, that's far more important. Electric mirrors too. Certainly the seats are not the last word in comfort, but they are okay. I've driven cars with much worse seating than this. The driver is very, very high up, which I think some people like. I'm sure some people don't, but there we go. It's just a car which doesn't really have anything that's going to scare anyone about it. If you were one of those who, I don't know, had an old Metro or something like that around the time of the scrappage scheme, and you traded in your Metro for one of these, you might have been pleasantly surprised by the you know, specification you got for the money, and you know, the 5-year warranty and things like that. What you wouldn't have probably got with this compared to the Metro is anything like the character of one of those. Particularly something like, I don't know, a nice GSI. I do like the Rover Metro GSI, particularly with a leather interior. My great uncle used to have one of those, and sadly he passed away many years ago, but I never got to drive that. But yes, compared with something like a Rover Metro, this, I don't know if it feels that much more refined. It's probably a little bit more refined than one of those, but none of the kind of quirkiness of driving a hydrogas car or anything like that. And also, not as much of a steering feel either. But yes, it's hard to argue with just how rational a car like this is for a lot of people who would have bought them back in the day. The current i10 and the previous generation one that came out in 2013 are much better cars than this, I'm sure. But there's just something about this sort of older style Korean car that I do find quite appealing. And maybe people on the Soul Classics Facebook group, who always seem to offer me loads of lovely Pacific Rim cars to review on No Budget Reviews, maybe you can also let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Right, viewers, should you buy a first generation Hyundai i10? Well, these are just going to fall more and more into No Budget Reviews territory, and there'll be lots of them around. The engines are pretty well proven, to be honest, in these cars, and they've seem to be quite hard wearing. Even the air conditioning in this car, that's well over 10 years old, still works, which is remarkable. A lot of them were owned by retired people, or often as first cars, sort of a whole range of spectrum and everything in between. And a lot of them have been quite well maintained. There's not really a lot to maintain in these, to be honest. Strangely enough, they do have rear disc brakes, which is unusual for this price of this style of car. Apart from this cable operated clutch, which I really don't like, and it's quite common on cars on the 2000s that I've found, as the cable clutches wear a little bit, it does get a bit difficult. I think these aren't bad cars. I think, you know, they probably are one of the more sensible No Budget Reviews choices, if you can find a good one, like this one. Obviously it's not for sale though, because they need it at the garage to lend to people like me. Yes, I don't see why not, really. The fact that you get well over 50 miles per gallon in any variant of these suggests to me that running costs will be very, very low indeed. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode of No Budget Reviews. Please don't forget to like this video, to leave a comment below, and to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Click the notification bell to be informed of new videos. Social media links are down below. Thank you once again.